Hello. Hello. Ooh, I've got a big one coming today. Got a big idea, and I've been thinking about a lot. So I've been pulling all these things together, and so we'll see how it comes together with you today, because it's not clear right now, as usual. I mean, this is just any at work. My extrovert intuition, just like this feeling that I'm onto some big idea. So I'll talk it through with you, and let's set the tentative title right now: the fallacy of bottom line thinking. The fallacy of bottom line thinking. And we'll start there. We'll just talk that through. And the general idea I've been thinking about. Let me just talk about the inspiration of today's idea. Is I've noticed, and I've written often online with different people who had things. We had discussions. And I've come to realize that the entire world is based around a default TESI mindset. TESI. So to quickly remind us what TESI is. Come on. TESI is, in a nutshell, it is bottom line thinking. But let me tell you what the parts are. TE is all about, okay, we have a certain goal that we have set. Did we reach the goal? How do we reach the goal? Have you properly organized such that it's clear that the goal is going to happen? What are the parts that are going to lead to the goal? Is it an efficient process that you have decided? That's TE, right? SI is, where is the data that what you're doing is accurate? Do we have evidence that this is the valid way? And show me. So that's TESI, and it is very much the default. It's like middle manager mindset. It's middle manager culture. It's company culture. It is just traditional company, traditional corporate America, traditional corporate culture. I've come to realize that TESI culture is just, there have been periods in history where it was not TESI, but in the most recent part of our history, we have become intensely TESI because things like the stock market took control or grew, corporations grew, moguls grew. People worked for companies, and the way that companies managed how they did things was, here are the outcomes, here is our current progress, and they reported it. And then I also mentioned in a previous video how the education system just borrowed that process, and so the education system is also starkly outcome oriented, and it's no wonder why students don't really care what they learn. They just care whether they get the A, and it's almost like no one cares as long as that kid's grades are okay. The teacher doesn't care, the student doesn't care, the parents don't care. It's fine. Like, no one actually cares whether the kid learned anything. You say, like, hey, what grade did you get in grade 11 at English? And the student said, I got an A. Okay, end of story. We don't need to talk about anything else. Bottom line, you got the A. We're done. Of course, if you agree with what I just said, if you say that's why we're doing school, then you probably have TE at the top of your stack. But if you think that is not why we are going to school, then you likely don't have TE at the top of your stack. So I'd like to explore that more, because it's my thesis essentially that because of our recent history, because of what has been successful in recent past, we have developed a heavy TE bias that I think creates many negative side effects that we simply treat as reality and true when it really isn't. It's just because we consider TE to be reality when it's only 1/8 of the functions, right? Here's I will simply walk through my examples to see how I can tie all this together. So one example of how bottom line thinking has really shaped so the grades, right? Grades is one place where or in education is not about grades, okay? No matter what you say, education is not about grades. But if you view it from a TE lens, then it becomes about grades, because they say, okay, the class was about whatever, but what I really care about is what your result is. Are our students getting good grades, or are they failing? Yes or no, bottom line. It doesn't matter what they're learning, what they're teaching, what the subjects, how the subjects are useful out in the real world, I'm not going to say real world, I'm going to say outside of school. None of that matters, because that's not the job of a TE Dom. That's not an ESTJ's job. An ESTJ's job is to provide the results based on the rubric, and if it fits, then we're good. And if it isn't, then we have a problem. And so if I say, why do we teach this in class? Then an ESTJ will say, I don't know, that's what the rubric said. Did you do it or not, right? Bottom line thinking, this is what I'm pointing to. And one example of where that can really go awry is essentially bribing that happens to allow to get people admitted to colleges. See, this is like the concept of an elite college, and then someone getting in being treated differently than someone not getting in is just another side effect of bottom line thinking. And then people using whatever means necessary to get the person in is also another example of bottom line thinking. And I assert that oftentimes many of these people do not naturally think this way. They don't naturally think bottom line, but it's just TE thinking, bottom line thinking, has permeated the culture so deeply over recent history that they assume that this is the way that everyone else thinks, right? So, and a big idea I'm covering in this video is how this tendency to rely on bottom line thinking really distorts reality and causes us to focus on things that aren't actually that important. And we actually might end up killing a lot of things that were alive for another reason, number one. Number two, not understanding what is actually going on. That can also happen. So the second example here is my own channel, right? I thank you for I thank each of us, I guess, for this content being valuable to you, right? And it's very interesting to kind of talk about these results, right? Like if you say, like you talk about these results with certain kinds of people, because for someone who, for example, I would just say in general, the reason why most people are not running YouTube channels is because they have been, the word I want to use is infected, but like they've just been convinced that bottom line thinking is the truth about the world. In other words, is like practicality and like is that going to make money, right? From that lens, it's very interesting to see like 2,591 views in the last 28 days. If you are from a TE lens, this is very small, right? You can say this is very small because like it doesn't matter like who watched it. It doesn't matter what value they got. It doesn't matter what the videos were about. What matters is, Are you gonna make money? This is gonna get monetized? Are you moving towards your outcomes? Are you successful? Right. So, but I assert that view overlooks so much. I mean, I have like 150 subscribers. Like, I had this talk with a friend. Like, are you aware of how many people 150 people is? And 188. If we go to like the last 7 days, right? In the last week, 90 hours of my content has been watched. There are 120 hours in the last week. So it is as if I was working around the clock all day, every day last week. This would not have been realistic in my personal life. 1,000 people have been reached. I mean, I asked my friend, like, how many people have you talked to in the last 5 years? And my estimate is, in the last 5 years, I've talked to less than 1,000 people. So, and then also the other thing is, like, it's been like 2 weeks. I've been posting videos for 2 weeks, and yet the immediate response I get from people who have all been hypnotized, I would say, like, I say these words as not directly negative. I just notice that this is like the air of the world. Like, this is the ocean we swim in. They've been hypnotized by bottom line TE thinking. Like, okay, so is it going to make money? And it overlooks. I assert that it overlooks like 99% of everything happening in the world. It's as I like the example I used before. It's like I planted a seed for a tree, and I say, hey, I planted a seed for this peach tree. And look, it's like it's 1 year old. Like, I'm really glad I grew it. And then the other person says, "Oh, so how many fruit did you pick?" And like, if you want, like, my immediate, I'm not aware of how long it takes for peach trees to grow fruit, but I assume it's something like it takes 3 years. And so in 3 years, this peach tree now starts sprouting fruit. And then the person says, "Oh wow, look. That peach tree sprouts fruit. What did that peach tree do differently than all these other people that planted peach trees?" Well, they didn't do anything differently. A peach tree is a peach tree, but to a bottom line thinker, and by the way, like, bottom line thinking is very valuable, but not when it's the only thing you're looking at. To a bottom line thinker, they're not going to look at all these other peach trees that are planted and growing. They're only going to look at the peach tree that has sprouted fruit. And it just creates a very distorted understanding of the world. Here's something I was talking with my friend, and here's something I was thinking about. Like I want to bring these numbers back to reality, right? So generally, like, maybe 20 people were watching my content per hour. That's, like, now that I understand what that means, that's pretty insane, because this is 20 people. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. I believe I counted wrong, because I think this is 20. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Okay, it's 18 people. Anyways, this is 20 people. This is like 18 people. Every hour, this many people were coming to watch my content for free, automatically. And if I did this in person, that I would think that, like, wow, there are so many people here. It's like a bazaar. It's like a marketplace. I'm really happy that they're all watching. And then like looking at my watch time, I understand that they're watching a lot of it, and they're liking it, and they're posting comments. So viewed from a process-oriented perspective, there is a lot of promise here, and there's already a lot of results here. However, again, the world is almost stuck in sixth gear. They're stuck in the bottom line thinking, and people will naturally, just because of how they've been programmed, they will dismiss this, and they essentially say, that's essentially zero, and it's not zero. And there are more examples like this. By the way, okay. So, well, we can continue in this down this path. 2,500 views. That is this is what 1,000 people looks like. That's not zero. I mean, 3,000 basically is this many people looked at my content, right? Yeah. So I think what I'm pointing out there with the current results I'm getting from the channel, and then not only that, right? Okay, so that's one step back from bottom line thinking right there, where I'm saying, hey, these results aren't zero. These are actual people coming to see my content, and thank you. But then you take a further step back, and you can ask the question, why are they coming? Why are you coming to watch this content? And it's because I assert the content is something that you want to hear. It's good, and it's refreshing. It's something that you haven't really heard before. It's TI. If you're an INTP and you speak your truth, I assert that people will find that like that too. But again, looking at the bottom line, you will miss that. And I've been thinking about many examples. I'll go right to the next example I was thinking about for this. You know, if you are, I grew up watching Star Wars, you know, episode 4, 5, and 6, amazing movies, right? The story was so captivating. All the different arcs and the concept of the Force, it was beautiful stuff. It really lit up the imagination, right? And because of that, it became possible to run Star Wars episode 7, 8, and 9. And looking bottom line, Star Wars 7, 8, and 9 were successes in the box office. 500 million, 417 million, 300 million. But if you listen to the general consensus of the fans around the world, not everyone, but a lot of people hated these movies. So, and no one really remembers any of the story of these movies, right? Like the general consensus was that these movies were fan service to just serve people's nostalgia about Star Wars. In other words, it served the TE purpose of making a profit, and it killed the franchise. That's my conclusion. Of course, there are smaller, more artistic takes on Star Wars, like The Mandalorian and these things. And to me, this is yet another example. This is another example of what happens to things when TE takes control when it should not. And, you know, something like Dune and Denis Villeneuve, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but I think he's INFP. So he was imagining this whole world building for Dune and how they can like depict that on the big screen. And Dune was an excellent movie that captured like people's imaginations and made the world of Dune feel so real. And looking at the bottom line, they created a franchise out of nowhere because they let the imagination lead. Because they let the storytellers tell a story. So I'm talking to two different lenses here, INFP and INTP. I'm kind of walking over those to show that they can ultimately create something of tangible value, but not if they aim directly at the bottom line. If you aim directly at the bottom line and you try and capture the bottom line in art or something like a movie, you will kill it. That's what I assert. And I'm reminded of the Plato story of the allegory of the cave. And this is what I view bottom line thinking as. Bottom line thinking says, okay, I don't have to look at anything. I don't have to look at anything that's going on here. I don't have to look at, I don't have to understand any of it. I just know that when this happens, we get this result. So that tells me that if I do that too, I will also get that result, ignoring everything else about the process, right? There's a lot of just natural reactions I have to this, and I'll just voice them. Like this feels dangerous to me. This feels misguided to me. This feels like it will just not work, and perhaps sometimes it will work, or at least it will direct people's focus towards asking why and asking or figuring out how to understand the process we're talking about here. But yes, bottom line thinking reminds me of this. And this is what I think TI is focused on. Like, okay, yes, I see the shadow being cast, but why? What's causing it? And I assert that a lot of times it's the person that asks why and figures that out that actually creates the value. They create the substance of the value, and then this person directs the outcome. So it is synergistic. However, what I'm pointing at is that the world right now, I think, is, to say again, overtuned towards TE. And one big reason why the world is overtuned towards TE is because everyone works for companies, and the accepted form of value is money. And so people look at this money and they feel like the power is contained in the money, when that's not necessarily true. I've seen it over and over again. For example, on the internet, like a Twitch streamer gets popular, and then the people just throw donations at the Twitch streamer. Is that because of money? Because there's some tangible value being shared? There is some other kind of value being shared that people wanted, and the streamer was brave enough to be authentically sharing that need, expressing themselves, and people just ate it up. ESFPs, ESTPs on streaming, INTP sometimes, just by being themselves, people automatically got value from who they're being. There was no need for a market analysis and an understanding of the data so that you know how to capture the market by shaping the persona of the streamer such that it captures the market. See, that's the TE way of doing it, and often it kills it. So I'm somewhat reminded of one thing, which is something that was a very common trope or common repeating story in the Bible about idolatry. For example, when Moses was leading the people through the desert after they left Egypt, Moses kept saying, don't worship, don't melt down your bronze and make a calf and worship the calf, or worship the golden calf. Even though, yes, the golden calf looks real, but God, in the Bible, God is not tangible. God cannot be seen. There's a one true God, and something that I've studied a lot in spirituality is the idea of how the identity of God is I am, which is Neville Goddard says, it talks about how your unconscious, your subconscious mind is I am. That's what Jesus means about the Holy Spirit and stuff. Anyways, I'm reminded of that, how For like, there are many stories in the Old Testament about how like the other army was larger, but the Israelites had they had this unconscious mind on their side. Another way to say that is just like the spirit and authenticity of belief. And what I'm pointing at here is that these examples I'm showing you show that there are more sources of value than this. Than this physical thing called money. This physical thing called money is simply a representation of the human spirit. For example, right? Apple. Here's my iPhone. Apple is like $1 trillion company, right? And you paid a certain amount of money for your phone. And that's really cool. But is your phone valuable to you because of how much money you spent? Or is it for some other less tangible reason? And I assert that there are so many needs that it supports. There's so many things that your phone represents for you that you will willingly spend that money. And so, like, what is money? What is money if that is the value you're getting? Well, I would say that money is almost like it represents, like I said, it represents the human spirit. So anything that feeds the human spirit can and will be converted to monetary value. And especially for like INTPs, that can only be accessed, or I think the most powerful way to access this is by not pursuing the tangible value. I assert that if you pursue the TINE value, that you will feed the human spirit, and the human spirit will repay you in whatever support you need. I mean, like, even if you made the money, I think I also assert that for INTPs, even if you made the money, you wouldn't really find much reason to use it. I mean, you would really just want to put it back into your hobbies and research. So this big idea, yeah. So the title I was thinking about was The Folly of Bottom Line Thinking. And each of these analogies showing how the results is only 1% of reality. And however, the world has ended up in this place where the results is considered at 100% of reality. And that's just not possible, and it causes a lot of unintended negative side effects, consequences. Like if I was thinking bottom line, I would not have released this video. I would have released this video and then gotten 1,000 views, and then been like, oh, 1,000 views doesn't equal money, so I'm going to take it down. You know, like, I'm just pointing out like people, the prevailing culture right now is like looking through a peephole and ignoring 99% of reality. Let's see if there's anything else in my notes about like covering this idea. So I guess I can move. I can move into what I see is like the path forward through this, away from this, or like what can we do now that we can see this? I wrote this note. Nothing has to be done about this. Nothing has to be done about this. What I mean by that is, this does not mean turn like demand that TE pay for their sins or something. Rather, the path is through every type's uninhibited, passionate self-expression. This will lead to balance and thriving. So what I interpret has happened in the past 2 generations is people have been trained to think that their own perspective, their non-TE perspective, is not valid. And they relinquished control, they said, oh, I don't know. I guess the TE people know what they're doing. And when really each type's perspective is equally valid and equally valuable, if they only moved in that direction, then they would find out. And so that's part of what I'm doing here as an INTP. I'm sharing these ideas with you. And what I have seen already so far is this idea itself is is my gift to you, and it will resonate with the people who are hungry for hearing this. And already that is feeding the human spirit. Here's another note I wrote. If you are not TE goals are not making you happy. They are a trap. They are just you are just buying into the idea that TE is reality. And that is the world we currently live in. We currently live in the world where TESI has set the rules of the game. And I think a lot of what is happening in the world, the Chinese lie flat movement and the great resignation in the US, is people realizing, oh, I've been doing something that is not authentic to me, huh? I guess I need to figure out who I am. Because it's almost like the big machine, the great education industrial complex, is there to have you assume that TESI is reality. And what I've been exploring, the experiment I'm running here is, as Bashar says, it resonates so much with me, is your path will support you. TINE is not a mistake. Your brain is not leading you astray. It's leading you directly towards your pot of gold. And if you are a different type, whatever your type's natural aim and what makes you come alive, it will lead towards your pot of gold. Now, it may not lead towards TE rewards. It may not lead towards the TE rewards is fame, wealth, and like lots of things. But you don't naturally value those things. I assert that if you are not a TE, if you're not a TE Dom or if you're not one of the TJs, then you don't naturally value that, and so you don't have to pursue that. The other note I wrote here is, or there's two notes I wrote here. One is, this is not a problem to solve directly. It is solved automatically through self-expression. So, again, what I'm saying here is, TE did not grab control. It's just that everyone else lost faith in their own perspective. And so TE just stepped forward and did what it did. But all there is to do, in my opinion, to regain balance and overall health in the system, is for every type to act authentically in the direction of their natural aim. And that will naturally balance out TE and create all of these resonant communities in every type. And we will live in a much more, just a healthy and more complete understanding of the world place. Here's another note that is related. It's not that TE took control. It's that everyone else accepted that TE is reality and their perspective is not valid. However, your perspective is valid. And if you merely express it, you will discover it is true. And I think that is, you will discover that this is true. If you merely express it, you will discover that this is true. I think that is actually the core of Bashar's formula, where he says, follow your excitement to the extent of your ability. If you cannot do anything else today, that is as far as you've gotten. Your excitement will naturally it's a self-organizing principle. It will take care of you as you move through your journey, because because the assertion is that your natural path is not a fluke. It knows exactly what it's doing. Your unconscious self, as Jung would say, the unconscious path, your calling. If you read The Alchemist, I recommend reading The Alchemist. The universe will conspire in your favor. I've seen how true that is, and I think it has really become the time in mankind's history for us to expand the idea of what the meaning of life is beyond the limited TESI past we came from. That's like the conventional view, and there's nothing you have to do about that. It is all about, as they say, integrating and expanding. For if you are TINE, if you're an INTP, like, you can accept that is their perspective, and it is not yours, and they have their place here, and I will pursue TINE in the world. So I was exploring that idea of how the world is heavily bottom line thinkers, the people that are in control and viewing. And I think a lot of the common tropes or common cultural memes in the world are also heavily TESI. And the main message of what I'm sending here is that instead of treating that as the default of reality for all of us, that is just one path and one story. And I feel it is the calling, the destiny, the internal yearning of each type to demonstrate to all of us, without having to like collaborate with any other type, demonstrate to all of us what you see there is to do in this beautiful reality of ours. There's also another idea linked to this, which is decentralization, which I think this ties in very much with. I think what I'm talking about here is related to how the world was, in order to very quickly and powerfully move into the direction of material wealth, we centralized. And centralization naturally leads, like TESI in that perspective is the most obvious way to handle it. But we are now in a period of decentralization. I mean, YouTube is an example. It used to be like just a few TV studios, right? But now, for free, I'm posting this video about INTPs of all things, right? And naturally, I think culture and people are decentralizing and forming their own highly authentic, like, micro communities. And I think just like YouTube has demonstrated and these social media platforms has demonstrated, this is not overall detrimental. Let's focus on the business outcomes of the decentralization of media. It led to ultimately greater wealth for everyone involved. I can post these videos, and like YouTube is one of the largest companies in the world, right? So it's not going to be a detriment to us if we decentralize culturally and socially. It's actually going to ultimately allow us to better handle more of the complexities of reality, and indirectly, without forcing each other to collaborate directly, we will indirectly provide greater wealth for everyone in the world. I will be able to freely share TINE with the world. And And people can benefit from that without having to like force it through this tiny TE lens, this tiny bottom line thinking lens. And every type has their gift to share. That's my view. I'll show you. I had another picture here prepared, which is once again how I view bottom line thinking. Like, here's the shadow. I'm going to use the shadow as my reasoning for my decision. But that leaves out so much about the detail of what you're actually looking at. This kid is so much more than this shadow. And so, once again, bottom line thinking, it might sound the most mature and serious and like you're really business oriented, but as the name implies, in order to do it, you're blocking out 99% of reality. And I question the idea that is intelligent, that's smart to do. I mean, put it that way. I don't think it sounds smart at all. I feel that quite well covers the topic I wanted to talk about today. And I don't think there's anything else. So I hope you're having an amazing day. I hope that was valuable to you. And I will see you in the next video.